Hi everyone, I'm John Rennie and welcome to The Boneyard. Italian filmmaker Dario Argento has long been heralded as one of the greatest filmmakers in the history of horror cinema. His work Suspiria, filmed in 1977, is his most renowned film and is admired by genre fans for being one of the most stylized and most beautiful works of suspense cinema ever made. While Argento's works have been as beautiful as Suspiria and as nerve-jangling as his classic opera, his works have also tackled horrific acts of stylized violence, as in the case of the Stendhal syndrome, which is about a vicious kidnapping and assault, but also about the overwhelming power of art. Argento has said himself that he considers his works as a cathartic outlet for exercising nightmares and a safe way to explore the human psyche's darker side.
Cioè, io ho la possibilità di dialogare con la mia metà oscura, il mio dark half, la mia metà oscura. Sì, ho la possibilità di parlarci. È questo che mi dà anche la possibilità di raccontare questi pensieri, queste mie allucinazioni, questi miei...
Argento never turns the camera away in moments of terror and violence, but often he treats them as you would a moment of beauty and emphasizes these moments with his use of cinematic tools such as high contrast lighting and color, reflections, slow motion, and I think most powerfully, his use of the extreme close-up. He uses all of these tools to dazzle and terrify us, and when we see them all put together in his precise editing, he shows us that he is a master of building suspense. Each of his set-piece scenes of terror end in a crescendo of broken glass and operatic violence. When we begin to dissect his work, we see that he has many themes that reoccur that are personal to the filmmaker, such as his love of nature and animals.
Animals? Like the killer's cutouts, Marcello.
That plays a role in almost all of his films.
Io invece non sono misogino per niente, non sono un assassino, sono buono, amo gli animali.
Does Jennifer look like a devil to you? Huh?
On the films, I'm another person. I'm a person look in my dreams, and then when I finish films, I'm simple. I'm like everybody.
Argento was born into the world of cinema and beauty. His father was a film producer, and his mother taught him the process of shooting beauty as he watched her work as a child, as she herself was a photographer shooting many of the most beautiful performers in Italy.
Mia mamma era Elda Luxardo, che era una famosissima fotografa negli anni 40, 50, 60. Io ricordo di aver frequentato molto lo studio, che stavo bene lì, tranquillo, vedevo tutto questo movimento, Lì ho imparato molte cose che oggi come regista naturalmente porto io nel cinema. Ho imparato molte cose sulla fotografia, sulle riprese, sui primi piani degli attori, truccate. Ancora c'ho nel naso l'odore del make-up dolciastro. Quando poi mi sono trovato per la prima volta sul set, io vidi subito che sapevo rappresentare meglio la figura femminile.
I think this goes a long way into explaining why we see the magnificent lighting setups that we see throughout his work. He is a precise designer and controls all that we see on screen.
Nei miei film le donne, le fanciulle sono molto importanti perché mi ricordo come mia madre le rappresentava, come le esaltava.
As a young man, Argento was a film critic, who then worked with Sergio Leone on the outline for his operatic western, Once Upon a Time in the West. A great way of cutting your teeth and getting into the business.
For Sergio Leone, we are also Bernardo Bertolucci, because we are the same generation, and we are friends before. Me and Bernardo, we write with for Sergio Leone, Once Upon a Time in the West. We work for around 8 months for this picture, and we receive $500 each. It's incredible.
Time has proven that there is an ever-growing audience for Argento's brand of gothic storytelling, stylized violence and horror, and he's become a huge star that many consider the true maestro of the macabre. This episode, I want to take a deep dive into Argento's career and look at how his previous works have affected his most recent work, his return to the Giallo genre that centers around a whole world of terror, when a serial killer pursues a recently blinded prostitute in his 2022 film, Dark Glasses. As a long-time fan of Dario Argento's work, I was hesitant in watching Dark Glasses, which he made exclusively for the Shudder Horror streaming service in 2022. I say hesitant because his later works have often been dismissed by critics and fans as being much lesser films than his earlier works. And although I am a fan of many of his later works, such as Sleepless, which has some incredible visuals, and is the film that many consider his last great movie.
You wanna know now? No, I won't do that. No.
I agree with the criticism, and that in the digital filming era, Argento began to feel a little bit lost and made a few missteps one after the other that made fans like myself feel as though the horror maestro was beginning to lose his edge.
My sister!
Now you're gonna die.
My sister!
In particular, with his adaptation of Dracula filmed in 3D and released in 2012. The digital effects in Dracula were pretty rough around the edges, which takes us out of the action, even in a fantasy film. And that is a big part of the reason why many considered Argento's Dracula a complete write-off of the classic Gothic tale. This wasn't a fairy tale like Argento's Phenomena, with magical and charming effects to accentuate the narrative and dreamlike logic of the film. This was an all-out attempt at creating a new world with modern digital filmmaking techniques, such as sky replacement, green screen, and CGI. You can't blame a filmmaker who was working in film from the 1960s for being curious when they saw what the future of digital effects might allow. And you have to admit that things have come a long way in over 20 years of CGI development. Personally, I can now take enjoyment from Argento's Dracula, and have watched it many times since its release, and I look at it now as an experimental work for Argento, who was making the transition from traditional filmmaking and moving into the new digital era. In my opinion, Dracula looks as it does, as it was made by someone with an imagination as bold as Argento, and in it, he was testing the limits of new digital filmmaking technologies in order to understand them. I can't argue that it's a classic film, but as an Argento fan and a student of film, I can see why it looks the way that it does, and I've found my own peace with the movie over the last few years. So I came to Dark Glasses a little later than most other Argento fans, as I had lost the taste for his more recent works. And that is why I was so happily surprised when I found myself on the edge of my seat. Dark Glasses is a carefully crafted blend of mystery,
E hai idea del perché ce l'avesse proprio con lei?
Non lo so.
suspense, and stylistic flair that took me back to the director's iconic early Giallo films that inspired the slasher genre. such as his work, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970, and most notably, The Cat O' Nine Tails from 71, which, much like Dark Glasses, features a blind protagonist
So then I says to her, I don't think...
Said to her.
who has a similar relationship with his niece that the two main protagonists, Diana and Chin, share in Dark Glasses.
Grazie.
This is a beautiful relationship between these two lost characters.
Diana, il re mi sta leccando la mano.
Chin has lost his family, and Diana is caught in a life-changing situation, and together the two bond in a way I think brings out the beauty amidst the horror.
Non mandarmi via, ti prego. Se c'è
Dark Glasses, for
qualcuno
all of its terror, is actually the story of strong characters whose will and determination prove that they can face their demons head-on and come out changed and alive, if they are lucky, on the other side. It's a movie about coping with tragedy.
Era... sei l'unica amica che mi è rimasta.
Because his films are often overshadowed by the violent scenes, I think the drama aspect of Argento's films is often overlooked. It has been said that he treats his actors on set as a hindrance, and that he doesn't like to direct performances, he just wants the actors to do their thing and let him do his.
I think some actors are very egotistical. They only think about themselves without thinking that their performances are only part of the film. This is very hard for me to come to terms with.
Purtroppo è stato abbastanza dura da superare.
Azione!
Lately, my father has changed very much with actors. When I was little, he was always telling me actors are animals, like Hitchcock said, actors are beasts. And I was a little girl and I was already acting, and I told him once, but I am an actress. And he said, no, you're not.
After viewing his films repeatedly over the years, first as a young teenager in love with the spectacle and the cinematic aspects of his work, I now feel as I have grown, so is my relationship with his films. As an adult, I've begun to see the tenderness and love in his work, especially in the case of Phenomena, which introduces Jennifer's character as someone who cares about the earth, even the insects that terrify a lot of us.
I love you. I love you all.
And then we have the story of her mother leaving her and her father in a beautifully lit and wonderfully performed dramatic scene.
And it was her lover. So then she left, and she never came back.
It's hard to believe that actress Jennifer Connelly was in her very early teens when they made that movie, and I think the gravitas of the performances could place that scene in any domestic drama. And indeed, I feel the same way about the love that Inga the chimp has for Professor McGregor in Phenomena, and vice versa. This is the tender side of Argento that loves his animals and feels emotions deeply. Amidst the extreme scenes, there are often these very touching and beautiful dramatic moments. And as a fan, I have come to enjoy these dramatic scenes just as much as the gore and the spectacle of his work.
Yeah, it's normal for insects. But am I normal?
I mention these scenes and phenomena as in Dark Glasses. The overwhelming feelings I had about the drama and the whole film in general was that it was about the beauty of finding friendship and hope in the most dire circumstances. And that really worked for me in setting the stakes high, as these were wonderful characters and their actions were believable as they needed each other. And the film relies on that need, which makes for compelling storytelling once these protagonists are put in jeopardy and the thrilling chase begins.
Sì, sono io. Diana, ho avuto paura di non trovarti.
I also feel that the performances from Elenia Pastorelli and Dario Argento are perfect for the movie, and they are strong and tender characters that before facing the coming violence, as we know they will have to,
C'è qualcuno!
seem to show us the very best in people.
Vita, com'è il cielo?
Oggi è coperto. Finalmente si respira un po'.
But for me, with this work, Argento has finally succeeded in mixing modern storytelling sensibilities with the classic Giallo elements that were so simple and perfectly executed in his earlier works.
I want you to take a look and tell me who you see in that car we just passed.
Cosa vedi?
Un furgone bianco parcheggiato.
Cosa? Che c'è dentro?
He has taken all of my own favourite aspects of his earlier career and put them into play in Dark Glasses. And I think that the toned down violence, although there are still some pretty gruesome sequences in the film, is a plus for me now. And it made Dark Glasses seem to me to be a more mature film from a filmmaker who helped to create the Giallo genre. While watching, I was hooked on the drama and interested in the psychology of the characters, and for me the dramatic elements, performances and toned down violence worked perfectly.
This is Giallo, it's something thriller, but with involved the psychology and psychoanalysis, something inside, beautiful woman. This is Giallo.
In the past, Argento wasn't always successful at mixing Giallo elements with new ideas, and strayed from the basic structure in some of his later works. For example, the Giallo The Card Player in 2003 brought in modern computer technology, and that almost immediately dated the film, similar to the effects and the fantasy elements of Dracula. The same as his film that was actually titled Giallo in 2009. He tried something very different and made a meta movie in the vein of Scream by actually making the skin color of the antagonist yellow.
You're ugly!
As a direct reference to the word giallo, which originated from the yellow color of the cheap paperback novels on which the early genre films of Argento's mentor, Mario Bava, and Argento himself were based. This approach on the whole turned giallo into something of a satire, which although had a great cast, starring one of my all-time favorite actresses, Emmanuelle Seigner.
How can you stand this?
My job. It's what I do.
It just didn't hit the spot in terms of terror, as the villain was just too distracting and I thought almost humorous in his appearance. Perhaps that was what Argento was intending, to mix things up, but it didn't work for me. Although these films are considered lesser Argento films, they still have excellent set pieces and performances which are well worth a watch if you are an Argento completist or a student of his filmmaking techniques. Another thing I found really interesting researching Dark Glasses is that it was almost a lost movie, and Argento had written the script in 2002, but financing fell through, and in a rage, he locked the script in a drawer and forgot about it. And it was his daughter, Asia Argento, who found the script, dusted it off, and told her father, "You really gotta make this movie." A lucky find, I think, for us fans indeed.
Tanto è stata la rabbia che mi è venuta che ho aperto un cassetto e ho buttato il copione dentro il cassetto in mezzo a delle carte. Ho chiuso il cassetto e non ho più riaperto questo cassetto per 20 anni.
This did make me wonder if Argento had made the film in 2002, would it have been successful to me as it is now? And I think the answer is no. It is the distinct and modern look of Dark Glasses that for me is a huge factor in what really makes it work. The film really does look stunning with its sweeping tracking shots and high contrast digital look.
Come mi stanno?
Bene.
In the autumn of his career, Argento has returned to the Giallo genre that made his name, and the successful modernization of his work, I think, is also due to the beautiful cinematography by director of photography and camera operator Matteo Cocco. I felt like I was watching a work made by filmmakers with a cinematic sensibility, and not something made for fast consumption to be streamed by a service and then forgotten about the next week when the next film begins to trend. This movie was made by a crew who were obviously given clear direction and followed the cinematic vision of the highly skilled veteran filmmaker, Dario Argento. I personally think that Dark Glasses is a beautiful looking and truly authored work in the late career of Dario Argento. It has taken him a while, but I think Argento has now adapted fully to modern filmmaking techniques. He makes the world come alive with his command of modern filmmaking technology and makes a simple shot of a girl getting into a car a beautifully composed shot of a girl alone in the city at night. When I first saw this particular shot, I had to go back and pause the Blu-ray. It really is a beautiful work of composition and style, and it is shots like this that separate the decorators from the stylists like the master, Dario Argento. The trials and tribulations Argento has gone through with his later works, The Card Player, Giallo and Dracula 3D, have actually paid off, and he has learned his lesson and gone back to the elements in his Giallo films that have been proven to work and have thrilled audiences for over 4 decades now. Fans of his work have come to expect a certain horrific yet erotic thrill from his films. I say erotic, which may seem like a strange term to use when talking about violence and horror, but eroticism, the naked body, and sexuality has always played a large part in Argento's work, and that has often been described by critics as being misogynistic. I tend to agree with those who feel that the erotic element of Argento's films is a mix of terror and sexuality that is used to create something unusual and challenge the audience by giving them something truly unique and terrifying, which also attacks us psychologically. With this strange blend, Argento achieves something of an unsettling atmosphere, and he puts us off guard, and I think that is a part of the magic of his work, and why it makes us feel differently than lesser genre films that employ the same visual aesthetics of violence and nudity.
Leading actors, the heroes in his movies are women, so it's difficult to pin him with the misogynistic label, per se. I think that he does something that is extremely disturbing to audiences, and that he couples violent death with almost sexual beauty, so that the death had a sexuality to it, and that's extremely disturbing.
Argento often uses nudity and sensuality very much in the same way that celebrated filmmaker Stanley Kubrick used bathrooms and nudity in his work like The Shining or Hitchcock and Psycho. They do this to terrify us by attacking us when we are our psychologically and physically naked selves, and this is when we are at our most vulnerable.
I could kill you now.
The kiss of a naked woman turns to horror in The Shining. A shower turns to death in Psycho, just as an atmosphere of confident sexuality turns to violence in Dark Glasses. I feel that this is not misogyny, but a way of mentally unstabilizing the viewer and making for a much more confusing, unsettling, and most of all terrifying experience.
Let's play a game.
The terror will get you when you're at your most naked and vulnerable self. A tried, tested, and proven successful psychological approach to horror cinema. An element that has always been a part of Argento's cinema are his creepy and unsettling build-ups to moments of terror in his marvelous set pieces. One of his earliest, most classic set pieces is the elevator scene in Kato Nine Tails.
You'll never see her again. I killed her.
A scene that is not only visually pleasing, but a great achievement in filmmaking technique. These trademark scenes work cinematically as visually pleasing sequences that show us the true skill of Argento's cinematic eye and work as a consummate editor, visual artist, and designer.
They look like flies.
He uses many visual themes in his work, such as the elements earth, air, fire, and water, and some of his most stunning sequences in what he calls his fairy tales, Suspiria, Phenomena, and Inferno, use the elements to stunning effect, as does the Stendhal syndrome. Argento's use of the elements is constant, and I think gives a grounding to his work that in nightmare sequences captures the fluidity, beauty, and indeed the terror and nature of dreams. He's a man who loves the natural and supernatural world, and that comes across in his work. I feel that Dark Glasses boasts his signature thriller setups that are equally as successful as his early Giallo films, such as the great chase scene that really kicks the movie into overdrive early on, and then later there is also a great setup and payoff in A Country River where our blind protagonist is attacked by nature's underwater creatures that she cannot see but she can feel, and that makes it all the more terrifying. Argento sets up a world where everything, even the calm countryside and peaceful water, can make our protagonists face terror. And of course, as we have seen, this is something Argento has always done throughout his career. We all have a relationship with the natural world, and his films have featured knife-wielding primates in the case of Phenomena, possessed dogs in Suspiria, and what many consider his scariest creatures, swarming insects, maggots, or indeed the ants that leave clues for our hero in his work Inferno. Animals, insects, and the natural world have always played a huge role in Argento's works. The beach in Tenebrae holds dark secrets that scar the mind of a killer, just as the natural phenomenon of the eclipse is what introduces us to the unsettling world of Dark Glasses. His work is filled with visual clues that are positioned in beautiful landscapes, and he uses them as metaphors that foreshadow the suspense that is to come.
Certi versi, l'eclisse con cui inizia il film è un omaggio a Antonioni. Per me però è un altro significato, è il significato di premonizione.
I think the masterful, thrilling execution to the build-up of the end of Dark Glasses, which I should also mention features nature and animals as a blessing to humankind, as his work often does, makes Dark Glasses stand up next to some of Argento's most suspenseful and thrilling works of terror. In conclusion, I can say that from its eerie total eclipse opening, Dark Glasses kept me on the edge of my seat. And it's been a long time since a movie has done that to me from the start to the finish. These elements, along with Argento's signature use of striking and beautiful compositions and a heart-pounding techno score from Arno Ribatini, created that haunting atmosphere that I've always loved about his work. It's definitely got Argento's trademark style and visual flair, and the film feels tightly structured, which resulted for me in a thrilling viewing experience. The Boneyard most certainly recommends this work to both returning fans looking for Argento's signature Giallo style, but also to new fans who may just be beginning their dark dive into the weird, wonderful, gory, and beautiful films of the maestro Dario Argento.
Spero che sia di vostra soddisfazione. Io l'ho fatto con il cuore e con il cuore ve lo do a tutti, col mio cuore. Buona visione!
I really hope you enjoyed this review and look back at the themes, techniques, and cinema of Dario Argento. I can't believe this is only my first video on his work, as he always has been and continues to be such an inspiration to myself, and you can pretty much see his influence everywhere in modern horror cinema. I didn't cover everything about what makes me love his work, but I thought this video would be a good start. So, if you would like to hear more from me about the works of Dario Argento and other filmmakers, please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about his work in the comments below. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.